Hello everyone, in this section we're going to be covering the timers in Lua. The timer setup is a Corona object that allows you to set something to occur in a certain specific time. So if you want something to happen a second from the moment that it's called, you would use a timer. So let's go ahead and create a basic timer. You want to have your main.lua file and your examples file in the timers folder open. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add this function runTimer and timer.perform with delay 1000, runTimer. And we'll see here once we run this, a second after we save and run, it calls it. So this is the first thing you pass to a timer.perform with delay is the amount of time to pause. This is milliseconds, so 1000 is actually 1 second. The second item is the actual function that it calls. So in 1000 milliseconds, this runs runTimer. We can change this to 5000, and then in 5 seconds, you will see runTimer's function will actually be called. Like so. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other functionality here. So one of the other things that you can do with the timer is actually have it run over iterations. So you can pass a third variable to a timer, and that is how many times it runs it. So right now we're going to tell it to run 3 times every 500 milliseconds, so half a second. So we can change this to 1500, and it'll go every 1.5 seconds, and it'll do it 3 times and then stop. So that is the basic use of the iterations. Now you can set an iteration to 0 or -1, and it will make it loop forever. So now this will continue to call every 1.5 seconds. So that's the basics of the timer. So let's go ahead and look at a table timer. Table timer works very similar. So we're going to go ahead and take this section of code. It is the same type of timer. The core difference here is that it's actually a timer function called within a table. So we're creating a table, and then we're adding a function to that table, having it print. And now when we do a timer, all we have to do is call the name of the table, and it'll call the timer function that's been attached to that table. So see here, it called the table function as we asked it to. So there's another way to do this as well. You can actually put the second function in the arguments. So let's give it 2500, and for the listener, we're actually going to write function, and then you need an end statement for a function. So we're actually going to have this function be inside of the timer. So like so. And now what will happen is in 2.5 seconds it'll run this function, as you see there. So this is not necessarily a recommended way for you to handle the majority of your code, because it does create a lot of unnamed functions that exist only in the instances of a timer. So I wouldn't recommend using this very often, but it is a useful feature. So that is running it within the argument. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is pausing and canceling a timer. In order to change a timer once it's started, you need to give it a name. So we're going to go ahead and name this one new timer. So now it's this timer now has a name associated to it. And let's go ahead and have it run an infinite amount of times. So it's going to continue to loop, as we see here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pause that timer. So, oops, you need to pass the timer itself. Now you'll see it didn't actually run this time because we paused it immediately. So since we can't really see this in action, why don't we create a second timer that pauses it? So we're going to have a timer at 5000, so 5 seconds. We're going to have it run pause timer function. So let's go ahead and create the pause timer function. And this will pause our new timer. So now we have, this is running every 2 seconds, but at 5 seconds, this is paused. So it'll only run twice. Now we could have this run much faster, and we can see the effect much more readily. And then it is canceled, or paused. And then of course we can pause it, we can resume it, and we can cancel it. So you could have another one of these functions after 7,000 seconds, or 7,000 milliseconds for instance, and this one we could have it unpause. So let's do an unpause function. So unpause timer function, and this one will resume this timer. So now we have this function running every 500 milliseconds, and after 5,000 milliseconds we run this, which pauses this timer, and then at 7,000 milliseconds we resume it, so we have it start again. So this is the very basics of pausing and canceling a timer. And then of course the last option is to actually cancel the timer. So let's do a cancel timer function. And then for this one we'll just have it cancel new timer. So now we have at 5 seconds it will pause it, at 7 seconds it'll unpause it, and then at 10 seconds it cancels it. So you can see here the timestamps as they're adding, and then it stops. So we hit the 10-second mark. So there you have it. That's the basics of the timer function. In the next stage we're going to go ahead and look at transitions.